Alright, pan-seared lamb chops in a rosemary gravy. Rosemary and lamb is a match made in heaven. You can use dried rosemary. I'm just lucky enough to have a bush of fresh rosemary which grows in my garden. But use the spring tips of rosemary or use dried rosemary for this. Right, for pan searing you're going to need something a bit more fatty meat wise. So lamb chops are perfect for it. I'm not trimming any of the fat off those, they're just going as they are. And any excess fat or oil can be drained off after the cooking process. Also the same with steaks, so we go for steaks with a mantle of fat on them, or plenty of marbled fat in the actual steak. So pan searing works well for steaks like sirloin steaks and ribeyes, and it works perfectly with these little sweet British lamb chops. These are absolutely gorgeous. So in addition to the chops we're going to need some rosemary, and over here I've got about half an onion which has been chopped up finely, 2 cloves of garlic which has been chopped up finely, about a heaped teaspoonful of tomato paste, or tomato puree as we know it in the UK, and I've got some sea salt crystals, I've got some flour for turning the fond into a sauce, and I've got some black pepper because it's rude not to, and I've got some oil. Now this is my own made garlic and rosemary infused oil. I've just put it in a sterilised bottle, but there you go. It's I basically put warm, good quality olive oil into a bottle and drop in some garlic, smashed up garlic, and some rosemary. And if you leave that for about a month, you end up with a beautifully infused rosemary oil. That's all the ingredients. Let's get on and show you how this is done. Okay, there's quite a lot of heat in that pan right now, so I'm going to put in some of my salt, so about a teaspoon of salt. Maybe a little more. Sprinkle it all over the bottom, and the idea now is I want that salt to get hot. This is a rather old nano ceramic pan, and you can see it's a bit coming to the end of its useful life, but nano ceramics are rather good to do this, and so are cast iron skillets as long as they're properly seasoned. I wouldn't want to try this with a non-stick pan. I don't think it would have quite the same effect. Right, so I'm going to put in my chops. I'm only going to put in 4 at a time. They are little ones, so they're not really going to create a lot of problems. And we don't do any pressing down, we just put them straight in. And if you do press down meat that you're pan searing, just press it down lightly in the corners. So that's just the plain unseasoned lamb straight onto the skillet into a dry pan with salt in it. That is it, simple as that. Now we let that go. You want to let that go for about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes aside for these little chops. There's a beautiful smell in this kitchen right now. So a couple of minutes in, and you can see the heat coming up the sides of the chops now, and as soon as these are ready to lift, and they're all ready to lift, they're easily moved as soon as they're ready to lift, just flip them and flip them into the intermediate space so that they get in there. They're getting their salt. And then you want to push down on the fat, try and keep it in contact with the pan, that's all. But you don't want to press down on that that noisette in the middle, because that is your sweet little lean bit. We're still on high heat. If you want to trim the fat off before serving them, feel free, but you need that fat in there for this process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it down to 2/3 of my heat and put the lid on just for a minute or two. Okay, after a minute or so, you'll see the lid gets super hot, and in the case of a glass lid like this, you can actually see the steam rising and running down the lid and coming off. So it's at that stage that everything's super heating inside there and cooking up. Now I don't want to let this go too long, because I like a little flavour, a little redness left inside my lamb chops. But if you like your lamb chops a bit more well done, then just leave them in for an extra minute. So around about the 2-minute phase, we very carefully lift the lid because it's going to spit. So always lift it like that, holding the lid as a shield against you. Then we put that to one side, and you'll see now we can lift off our lamb chops. I'm lifting off the lamb chops, which are now nicely done. I'm putting them on a plate to rest, and then I'll get on and cook off the other 4 chops. Okay, so I fried off my other chops, so rather quickly I'm going to get in my onion into there. And give that a stir around. And I'm going to add a little bit of my rosemary oil now. That's infused rosemary and garlic oil. About a tablespoon of that. Get that in. Oh, that smells amazing. That does smell good. And then into that one, I want my sprigs of rosemary. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 tips. Sprigs of rosemary, they can go in there. And you stir that around, and you'll be assaulted by the most amazing smell, because lamb and rosemary are a match made in heaven. And I know a lot of we Brits think that it's lamb and mint sauce, but just try this out. If you've never tried it out before, make sure you do, because lamb and rosemary just really rock. So let that cook for a minute or two until the onion's kind of translucent, and just keep it moving. And we don't worry about all that stuff in the bottom, because that's good. That's our stock cube. That's our flavouring for this. Oh, fabulous. Right, once your onion's translucent, you want to get in your garlic. So that's 2 cloves of garlic, more if you like. Stir that around. And you don't want to be burning that garlic, so keep it moving. Alright, so at this stage I want to get in about a dessert spoon, maybe a bit more, of flour. So that's ordinary all-purpose flour, ordinary plain flour, and then we get that stirring around, and we get that coated in the oil. Make sure that's mixed in well with the oil, because that makes the next bit a lot easier. Into that now I'm just putting a half a cupful of water and saving the other half. Get that stirred in. And then it starts to thicken. Starts to thicken nicely. And it browns it as well. So you're lifting off all that fond off the bottom, look. All that delicious fond off the bottom. And the salt's already in there. You don't need to worry too much about salt. but we'll be doing a little taste test in a minute, and then I'm going to put in the rest of that now. So that's, so far that's a mug of water, and then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let that bubble and cook out. I don't want any raw flour taste in there, I want that to all cook out. While that's doing, we can go in with the tomato paste. Stir to mix. And the tomatoes then, it's not a tomato sauce this, the tomato is just there as a flavouring, it's just there to give a little bit of a oomph of flavour, another layer of flavour to this wonderful, delicious sauce. So let that cook for a little longer. And it's nice to use like a flat bottomed spatula to sort of lift all that fond up from the bottom, because that's where all the flavour is. Once that's had a chance to cook out, we go in with a taste test. That's nice. A little bit more salt now. Not a lot. You taste it and you put in as much salt and pepper as you like. I'm rather addicted to black pepper, so I put in rather a lot. And that one will go a little bit, another taste test. I'm just going to do another taste test now I've done that. This is your chance to get it perfect, which that is. So now I'm going to go in with all my chops again and all the juice that's come off them. So just get those in, and then I just turn them around in the gravy to make sure they're all covered, and then turn that off. Turn the heat off from under them. Spin that around. So if you want to trim off the fat, you trim off the fat before you do this, before you put your chops back in, because it's a little bit messy to do it afterwards. And the rosemary has now done its work, so you can, if you want, you can take it out. Don't worry about any little bits that's left in there, they'll only add flavour. Just get out the big twigs. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put the lid on that and allow that to cook in the retiring heat. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to follow my channel, please subscribe and be sure to click the bell icon to receive notification of all my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.